Seems like my screen share stopped, so let me do this again. Because all I see on the YouTube stream is just 3 video frames. See if that worked.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. Seems like my screen share stopped. And so as soon as I mute the YouTube stream so we're not echoing. And there's the YouTube stream actually showing me the shared video that we want to show everyone and record. Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, gents. This is the MBTA Rider Oversight Committee meeting for April 23rd of 2024. We'll just go around, the four of us, just as we said before, more of an audio check than anything else. I'm Stefan Wunsch. I'm the co-chair of the overall and the co-chair of the subcommittee for marketing and operations, and I'm in Lynn, Massachusetts. Len, since you're unmuted, want to just say hi and a audio check?
Sure. Leonard Diggins, and I'm co-chair of the Capital Investment and Finance Subcommittee. Live in East Arlington. Take the red line pretty much every day.
And Wig, want to say hi since you're unmuted as well? And I'm just
Yeah,
going kind of
sure.
over my screen.
Hi, everybody. This is Wig Zamor from Somerville. I'm happy to be here. Pretty long time member. I guess we all are at this point. And let's toss it to Craig.
Yep. Thank you.
Hi. Craig Laskowski, public member, Milton, Massachusetts.
Thank you very much, guys. For what it's worth, the audio from all three of you sounds fantastic. I don't know if this is improvements in Zoom lately, but really good audio quality. And I'm sorry we can't see you, Wig, but you're coming through loud and clear. And
That's okay.
Your video, Zoom thinks your video is enabled, but I guess it's your laptop isn't playing along, but we can hear you just great. So
no, it's the Zoom practice session. But look, let's not worry. Let's not waste time on it.
No, that's fine.
This isn't the thing that happened last time where your little shutter got closed, is it? If you look above the camera, there's that little tiny thing you can slide left or right.
Good call.
No, I don't think so. This is a special thing for people who've never been on Zoom before, and they can go into practice mode.
Okay. Well, the webinar is out of. Well, the webinar is no longer in practice mode, so we're rocking and rolling, and we can just move on.
Yeah.
I don't see any attendees at the moment from the public, and nobody has started watching on YouTube. So as far as public comment, unless one of the three of you would like to say anything as public comment as such,
well, I think we'll get to it, but I three quick things from rifling through the links that you and Lynn sent. The first thing is that there are some large road projects attributed to Somerville, but they're I-93 and Route 28. They're interstate and regional highways, which is fine. I just don't want people to think Somerville's interested in spending those many tens of millions of dollars on local roads. Secondly, other than that, we have very, very few funds from Somerville are allocated to Somerville, and I think that's appropriate. You know, we've got the Green Line branches are running, the path is running. We're grateful for that, and I do think the funding should be looking elsewhere. The other thing that looked kind of interesting, and some of you may be following it, but is this electrification to Dorchester. I'm going to be interested to see how that goes. Alstrom is a very, very long producer, North American producer of electrified transit, light rail, and some things even smaller than that. So I think that'll be pretty interesting to watch to see if that works.
Yeah. Quick question about that. When you said like long, do you mean in terms of like being around, like they're a veteran in the industry, kind of
Yeah,
long?
yeah,
Got it.
they're really the only North American producer of electrified transit of that variety, in my experience. Alstrom's been around a very long time. They may actually have a Swedish-Finnish connection too. Um,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
so
I'm glad we clarified that because my concern, the reason why I wanted to clarify what you said by long was I wasn't sure if you were hinting that Alstom has a long lead time, but
no,
I
no, no,
didn't think so. Okay, got it.
no,
Yeah,
they're a
they've been in the
veteran. They've
yeah,
they've
they've been in the
they've
business a long
provided
time. Yeah,
Yeah, they've provided a lot of the systems in Europe.
right. Yep. And what was your third point? I think that was two out
Oh,
of the
that
three.
was three. That was three.
That
It
was
was
three.
just
Okay.
the roads aren't Somerville roads. I don't want people to think that um, we're not getting a lot of transit investment or walk bike, but we've had it. So I mean, we're grateful for what we've already gotten. And then the Dorchester conversion looks pretty interesting to me. So that's, I think, worth following.
Right. I just got to throw out one quick thing because this is a fun, well, fun and maybe relevant tidbit. Alstom, which we've known as making, rail vehicles,
Yep.
and well, here you go. Just I happen to have it up. Alstom actually has a direct connection back to the predecessor company that started in Lynn, Massachusetts, about a mile from us, that became General Electric because Thompson Houston Electric, which was the predecessor before the GE, is the Tom in Alstom. They've dropped the H to make Alstom, but yeah,
Yep.
the French Thomson Houston, which originally was the U.S. Thomson Houston, which
Right.
became GE, is still in still there in the THOM in Alstom. I mean, sorry, TOSTOM in Alstom. But anyway, just fun fact, little Lynn pride there. I apologize. Anything else that anybody would like to say before we get into the agenda topics?
Not really, except I'm going to keep my eye on that soccer stadium if it keeps going
Oh yeah,
forward.
absolutely. I haven't heard anything on that in maybe a month. Is there
Right.
is there a more recent development on that?
No, they had the State House hearing 3 weeks or I don't know, a month ago.
Yep.
Um, and I'm just super interested in what happens with Grand Junction and whether that can be turned into electrified rail.
Right.
It would connect everybody. So
I've forgotten right now. What's the time scope we're talking about? Are we talking about a decade or more, or is that something that could be fast
for
tracked? I guess play on words intended. Fast tracked within like 4 to 5 years.
for what? For
Oh, for that proposed stadium.
It really depends on they've been through their well they've been through preliminary discussions. Um, it will depend on how large they're going to have very large environmental impact reports for that project, and so we'll see how that goes. Um, I I Cambridge and Somerville have super high rankings for walking and biking and kind of sustainable transport. Obviously, not the same level of subway as Boston, which dwarfs the whole rest of the system, but
Yes.
still. But Everett has pretty high rankings too for walk bike. I don't know if you saw the Globe review within the last week,
No,
but
not quite yet.
I worry a little bit about who's kind of pulling the power strings in Everett. So and whether that's going to result in broad sharing of transportation assets that may be done for regional purposes or for soccer stadium purposes. The other thing that I think is relevant, we haven't discussed, there was supposed to be a Southside engine terminal being built. You know, 2/3 of the Keys uh, uh, commuter rail is on the south side, but the Boston Engine Terminal was on the north side. And if they are able to complete that south side engine terminal, that really frees up Grand Junction for use of transit that could help the population here. Because right now they have to ferry the engines, right? They have to ferry all the engines to Boston Engine Terminal, which is a bit of a waste of the corridor.
Yes. I mean, the alternative, I mean, any kind of north-south move, though, has to go over there. The alternative, as we learned from either Ryan Caholen or another, or maybe it was Michael from Mike Rooks from Keolis. The alternative to the Grand Junction is to go out to Worcester and back, and
yeah, there's a couple. As you guys know, there's more, especially you, Stefan. There's more historical rail in all of New England, including Massachusetts, than today's use of it. So there are these different things that can be rehabbed from time to time, and they're still out there. But of course, the other alternative was north-south rail, but I think that would just suck the money out of the state for decades.
Yep.
You know, much as some people like it, I'd rather use Grand Junction and connect all the subways and all the light rail.
Right. Yep. Do we have any for this bullet item, do we have any review and follow-up from preceding subcommittee meeting? I personally was a little bit removed from it, as you remember, so I don't have any notes because I had that conflict come up at the extreme last minute, and I was like partially remote. I think, what was I on the Zoom for maybe 45 minutes out of the 2 hours, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. So I may have to rely on you gents for a recap, unless we're going to cover.
Len, do you want to do that? I mean, you're really involved in this continuously.
Yeah, but I was in a remote situation too.
Yeah.
And so,
okay.
And so I left. I mean, the meeting was still going when I left. I wasn't sure how much longer you folks kept talking after I left. I'm trying to remember what Jonathan was primarily talking about, but I was in it. Yeah, I was highly distracted, because I was on my way back to Boston.
Yep. Yeah.
In hindsight, I should have recorded that for later reference. I apologize that I didn't.
Yeah. And actually, it was a little bit of a scramble because it wasn't really clear to me. Because Stefan, you contacted me asking me if I could start the meeting, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I can."
No, just to be there so I can hand it off to you. Yeah, I knew I could start it.
Right.
I just wasn't sure if I could actually
stay
on it.
Wrong.
But anyway,
right.
I mean, yeah, for the technology of the subcommittee meeting, I think it actually went better than I expected it would. But
I'm trying to remember what folks were talking about. I mean, Craig, you were there. You remember what we're talking about?
Oh gosh, we spent a lot of time talking about the casino, and in the stadium, and a opportunity. What's the pedestrian bridge and where that should connect to?
Right.
And that was a prime topic. I asked Jonathan to speak to the where we stand with rebuilding the Mattapan high-speed line trolleys, and then we pivoted to a conversation on the broader CRCC contracts and the where we stand with getting new orange and red light cars.
Right. Okay. And were you still there when I left, Craig?
You and I left around the same time.
Okay, all right.
Either I was quickly before you or quickly after.
Yeah, so I think we left Wig, Jonathan, and the new guy, I'm blanking out his name,
Hunter, right?
Hunter, right?
Yeah.
All right. So
Yep.
and
Hopefully Hunter can join us this evening. He's been a great asset to us, I think, in my opinion.
Right, I agree.
Since you mentioned the CRRC, I don't know if this falls under new business, but I'll call this just a quick continuation of the subcommittee topic. Since you mentioned CRRC, I'm not sure. Did you gents hear this? That Philadelphia said, "Nah."
Yep.
Yeah, that just happened a week ago, or rather, it happened it made the news a week ago. It was not a particularly big design, I believe. Yeah, 185 million, which I mean, our contract with them is over $1 billion at this point.
Yeah, I don't remember how far they or I didn't read it close enough to see or I remember how many they were saying here, how many have been built so far, and like
45 total. SEPTA paid 50 million. I'm sorry for scrolling while you're trying to read. That's talking about the red and orange line cars.
Yeah.
Or while I scroll some more. I actually don't think I saw how many had been. Oh, here we go. 45. Not receiving a single car. SEPTA has spent 50 million.
Where were those going to be built?
Springfield. That was going to be in
this is the
Massachusetts.
next. Yeah, this is the next piece or
Yeah.
the next.
Yep.
Well, it's a little, it probably would take a whole year or two to understand this, but it's a little confounding how such unbelievable transit can be built in China, but the same thing can't be done here.
Well, I don't want to read into this article, but I'll just take it on face value that maybe the China manufacturer, this Chinese manufacturer, isn't up to what we had hoped and they had promised.
I think it's a combination of things. I think the other aspect is it's really hard to stand up a new factory from scratch and have it humming on day one. That if you look at an analogy, when the first Teslas came out, the quality issues that they had in terms of they had all the money in the world, they're going to build fancy new electric cars, but the quality issues they had standing up a factory for the first time and what was coming out of that factory, that Teslas were not of the same quality what was coming off of comparable US-based manufacturing lines. And it takes a long time to kind of get that muscle memory of how to run a shop. And we essentially stood up a railway factory in Springfield because that's where we wanted the economic value, not because there was a whole bunch of railway workers or folks with particular skill set in that location.
Yeah.
There's other factors in there as well. I think CRC underbidding. You could fault CRCC a lot, right? And you can fault the MBTA for going with a low bid in the overall process. But I think both sides saw what they wanted to see. They both saw it, optimistically. Everybody saw it as a win-win, right? Like Massachusetts gets a factory, we get brand new cars, we get it at the lowest cost. you know, sometimes something's too good to be true.
Yep.
It's too good to be true.
I think you're right. I think you're right about that. I was, I was there when they decided. I went to a couple of those board meetings, and it's very hard for everybody to have very limited experience and to get it together and working. I, I think from time to time about the gentleman who took over GE and kind of got it straightened out a little bit, rescued some of its manufacturing, split it in three, all of those components continuing on. And I think he was a pretty rare person who could do that. So he's now running one division, but I think he did a phenomenal job. But I think the odds were probably against him. And
That's fair.
even it's kind of the opposite of what you just described, but I think it's kind of the same thing too, to come in wholesale. And the same thing happened with the Green Line. The first project team, the budget just blew out of all proportions. The state was absolutely right to cancel it and shut it down. There weren't people who were experienced on it. And John Dalton, I credit him a lot with keeping the project pretty much on time and on budget. And they just hired him because he had done a good job at various types of projects in Chicago. Not of the Green Line scale, but it proved out to be true. It's just a rare talent to lead this kind of stuff. I guess we should hope Eng can do the same thing with an operating system.
Yeah.
He was a pretty good speaker, I have to say.
I think just to close out this conversation, I think we can look at the separate decision lead of glass half full, glass half empty. The half empty is, I think it's a shame for the region, and I think it's a shame that there's opportunity here, right? Like
Yes.
if this all had worked out swimmingly well for both sides, this would have been the company's really foothold in the U.S. market. And because the first factory was set up in Massachusetts, that could, the whole plan was probably, Massachusetts to Philadelphia to whoever next, right?
Right.
There's a reason why it was probably put in the Northeast, close to New York as well. So I think that I worry about, what happens once the MBTA contract runs out. Is there anybody else going to use that factory? But that's the half empty. If the half full is, well, maybe they are no longer distracted. Maybe that was a distraction to the MBTA orders, and maybe specifically for the MBTA, they'll be better off just focusing on the orange and red line cars, and not putting the SEPTA commuter rail cars to the side.
Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Oh, wow. That's very astute. Yeah.
What was that last
You
part?
only have one thing to focus on now. That's the MBTA. You have no other
Oh, I
clients.
see. I gotcha.
Oh, wow. That's
You better not lose this contract now.
well, given how much the board just approved for additional expenditures for the red and orange that had already been under contract. I mean, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I thought the timing was odd on all this. That I'd be curious to know if anybody knew that the SEPTA thing was coming, because we would have been in a lot better negotiating position, I feel like, post the SEPTA announcement as opposed to pre the SEPTA announcement. So I don't, and I have no idea of anybody who on which side knew what.
That's a good one. Very good business sense there. Wow. I'm not going to try to find it out now. That would be wasting your time, the three of you. But
you'd have to ask somebody who approved it. Did you have any idea?
Yeah,
that they were, that the Philadelphia deal was falling apart at the same time.
Let me go back just very, very, very quickly. I don't want to belabor the point, even though I'm so good at it. That's my joke lately. Citing 4 years of delays. SEPTA is terminated. Is there anything in here? Okay, April 12th statement. Was there anything in here that actually that it even hinted at when they had made the decision? That's a really good point, Craig. I mean, I'm sure that SEPTA. No, I shouldn't say sure. I would imagine that SEPTA wouldn't go telling tales out of school to MBTA like, "Hey, you guys, we're about to pull the plug." I mean, if that had leaked out, that might have been, that might have been blowback on SEPTA if they leaked it. But still, you're right.
Small world. I mean, there are lots of signals that are often given, by people who know what signals to look at. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone had some clues, as to what was going on in SEPTA, even if they're not subject to the same OML requirements that we are,
Yeah.
And we may have we may have made the same decision either way, because to a certain degree our options were limited.
Yep, I think you're right. Well, for what it's worth, this indicates that let's see, it was end of March when the MBTA board made the call for the additional 148. And yeah, the officials announced Thursday. So this was Thursday relative to March 28th or so. And you're right, it's not pretty close. And this is an April 12th statement. That's a few weeks. Wow. Well, it may be water under the bridge. Lesson learned, probably, but
yeah, it's not a good look. I mean, like while you're another agency is saying bad workmanship, we're running away from this, and we're doubling down.
Right.
Like once again, there are some legitimate reasons to double down here, looking at, given the lack of alternatives, but it isn't necessarily a good look.
Right. And by the way, did you see this in this article? Several former employees described chaotic and often harrowing environment. And that was before the pandemic. I don't think I had heard about that report. I mean, it seems to be nobody's in the blue.
I think the pandemic really hurt us here as well, right? Because I think there were issues leading into the pandemic, and then everybody was able to write them off as pandemic issues. Oh, it's supply chain. Oh, it's this. When they were really long-standing things before the pandemic, they just metastasized along with pandemic issues, and then you got to that.
I can't remember big problems in Springfield before the pandemic, and so yeah, I'm not surprised. I can't remember like maybe some kind of management employee, like the people just weren't getting along really. And I can't remember. It wasn't really clear if it was like a culture thing, or something else.
Maybe I can answer that. By the way, we got Hunter on board. We're glad to see you, Hunter. I've got you enabled as a panelist and promote to panelist. Let's try that again. Promote to panelist. Well, you're able to speak if you want, just to give us like a, hey, excellent. We got video and everything. Glad you could make it. Thank you. I just wanted to find that, yeah. I remember, oh yes, I remember reading that specifically. I remember that line specifically. Bored to tears, pretending to work, waiting for parts because of the supply chain issues. Yeah. January 2023. Okay. Any more comment on that? I think I'm to blame for dropping the the long discussion of CRRC on you guys, but I just wanted to make sure that we at least knew about the SEPTA pulling the plug. Anything else from the subcommittee? So I just noticed we're almost at 5:45, and we haven't even started talking about the tip or the 2050 plan.
Let's move on to those.
All right, cool. Then we'll call, just for reference, because I got a link up here. I'll throw this just in case later. Okay. Len, do you have any particular presentation to a board that lately that you'd want to highlight? Because if not, we could just jump right into the tip, but by all means we can talk about the board meetings lately.
Nothing comes to mind right now. I mean, maybe you can have something for us in a couple of weeks. I think the question that I'm hoping that we can answer is whether or not we want to, submit a comment letter, and we would have until our next meeting to do that. I think it's going out for a 30-day comment period. I think it probably went out at the beginning of the week, and so that gives us, it wouldn't give us until our next full rock meeting, but we would have until our next meeting. And I'm going to suggest that we comment on the MBTA projects that were included as part of the tip. And what has happened lately is that projects get moved out of the near-term year. And just to back up a little bit, the tip is a 5-year plan, and we usually program with the new funds, the furthest year out, the 5th year out, the first year out, which is the nearest year. Often what happens is that projects get delayed and then they get pushed in subsequent years, which has its own issues. But the primary issue is that we then have funds available in the near-term year that we need to spend. So what has happened in the last few years, is that we've gone to the MBTA, and MassDOT has said, do you have any projects, that you want us to fund? And we want those projects to kind of fit into the overall mission of the MPO. And so this year, we funded, I thought, some interesting MBTA projects. I think one is for used to be called Dudley Station, Nubian Square, and kind of transform it in an interesting way. And also one is for increasing, I guess it's to do something mechanical at one of the commuter rail stations that will make it possible to provide more service there. Sorry, I just don't remember the details. But what I would like for us to do is to comment on those projects, and we can read up on them in time for 2 weeks from now, and just say what we think about them, and if we have any comments on the process, then we can comment on the process, and then I can help guide through that if you want. So that's it for the tip.
Oh yeah, I mean, I will only speak for myself, but I think we should absolutely take you up on your volunteering to guide us through the process, because I mean, I personally, even after almost 20 years on this committee, I'm still not quite grasping, in spite of trying, tip versus CIP, MPO, where it all goes, who actually makes the call, and the process of putting out drafts and public comment, that's pretty clear to me.
Yeah. Well, it's complex. I mean, so it's very understandable. I mean, I think it's only because I'm being exposed to it at least once a week, and have been for the last 4 years, 4.5 years since I've been chair of the advisory council, the Regional Transportation Advisory Council, that I'm as familiar with it as I am as a volunteer. You know what I mean? And so I don't. For me, it's a couple of times a week as opposed to those who work. Where it's 8 hours a day. So it's very understandable. It's complex. Lots of different plans from lots of different agencies. So
yeah,
don't
actually,
beat yourself up. Yeah.
Since I, as a veteran of the Rider Oversight Committee, still have gaps in my understandings. Hunter, do you want us to, would you like us to fill in any details now, or like we can in the future as well, about what we're talking about with the transportation improvement plan, the capital investment plan, TIP versus CIP, how the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, fits into all of it? I just want to make sure that Hunter's able to participate as much as you want to.
I think I would appreciate a little bit of a discussion of specifically the formulation of the TIP and CIP. I know that the TIP is specifically an MBTA working model. I don't know about the CIP. I do have a good grasp on what the MPO is for, though.
Excellent.
Well, actually, it's the other way around. So
Yeah,
the MBTA CIP capital investment program is specific to the MBTA. The transportation improvement program is the much MPO's improvement plan for the Boston region. And with respect to that CIP, I mean, that is something I'd like to discuss, at the next full committee or all committee meeting, because at that point, I think the draft of the CIP is going to be released later on this week. And
It's
then it'll
out.
be up. It's out?
Yep.
Okay, so then I will contact people and see if they can come to our meeting to discuss that and get our feedback. Otherwise, maybe we can write up a letter about it. And once again, I think it's a good process. I'll see if I can get the presentation that was done at. Actually, I take that back. And I think we were having this discussion, in our executive committee meeting, that they did a presentation for the MPO, and that presentation is on the MPO's calendar, and so you can see like their preview of the draft CIP, and then get that draft CIP and comment on it, and so I think I'm perhaps kidding myself to 2 letters. I'll do my best, once I get through the beginning of the town meeting, starts tomorrow, things should get easier, and I'm foreseeing the ability to write, not this weekend, but maybe the following weekend.
So the 28-page PowerPoint is a pretty good way to ease into this stuff, because it's very, it's got pictures, it's got bullet points. It does kind of confuse CIP and TIP, and that's unfortunate because they're quite different. The TIP is basically, I mean, Len knows more about this currently, certainly, than I do, but it's basically the 5-year spending plan of the MPO at project. And, it's not the study projects, it's the kind of stuff on the ground that they intend to do over the next 5 years. But that PowerPoint is a pretty good way of getting introduced to these things. It's blended, though. The TIP and the CIP are not the same thing.
Right. Again, the CIP, the MBTA CIP, is geared towards its investment plan for the next 5 years, also, and then of course there's the state TIP, which is different than the Boston region TIPs. And that's the state MassDOT's planning document made for the next 5 years.
Oh, geez.
Everyone's planning.
And I mean, just to be clear, these are federal requirements. Every metropolitan area has to use these formats in its transportation planning. I mean, you could go without federal funds, but you can't actually, unless you're extraordinarily wealthy.
But wait, I'm finding my jaw dropping again. There's a separate MassDOT TIP from the Boston
well,
MPO
they have to be
TIP.
consolidated, right? And these things, the different surface transportation planning regions get consolidated at the state level as well, right? The Boston MPO effectively does 3 things. It has a as a UPWP, which is things it wants to think about and study, but those are not project actualization budgets or plans. And then there's the 5-year tip, which is kind of the guts. That's like what's going to get done in the next 5 years for surface transportation. The capital is much bigger, and that can be long range, very long range.
Oh, yeah. But the capital investment plan that we're looking at here on WIG is for the MBTA. When you're talking about long range, with respect to the Boston MPO, is the long range investment plan. The long range transportation plan.
Right.
And so that's the third leg of what you were talking about. And so to answer your question, Stefan, yes, MassDOT has its own transportation improvement plan. It's called the STIP. It's the State Transportation Improvement Plan, and that's for spending state money. So the MPO is all about spending federal money, and there are 13 of them in the state, with Boston being the largest one. And there is some coordination amongst them all, thankfully, because MassDOT has a seat on each of the MPO's boards. But Boston by far has the largest amount of money to spend of the federal monies that come into the state. And so there's the CIP for the MPO. I'm sorry, there's a tip for the MPO. There's a tip for the state called the STIP, and then there's MBTA's capital investment plan. And I specified MBTAs because anyone can have a capital investment plan, right? And so in the case of what we were saying about federally mandated, yes, the state requires the feds require me that there be a transportation improvement plan for any MPO. I don't know if the feds require that the state has a tip. I don't think the feds can tell the state how to spend its money. I think maybe the feds can say, we will give you matching funds based on our expectations that you'll do certain things, and certainly the legislature can require that the state has a tip. And I'm sure someone has required that MassDOT has a tip. I'd like to think that MassDOT would have a tip even if it wasn't required to do so, because you do need to plan things. So that's it.
And MPOs don't have to be within a single state, right? If there's two cities that are in different states, but they're effectively one planning region,
right,
you can have an MPO that spans two states, but it's still part of the federal process,
right,
review process.
Yes.
Like Baltimore, Washington's a good example close to us, but there are others.
There are others. Yeah.
Wow. How you doing, Hunter? I'm ready for a nap, but that's just me.
I follow all that.
Yeah, but you go up.
Transportation is complex.
Yeah.
Everything's complex. It pales in comparison to biology.
Yeah. Well, where should we take this next? Do you want to call out anything that jumped out at you, Len, or
With respect to the tip?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the process I thought was very good. And what I'll try to do is, because I'm going to be involved with writing, the comment letter for the advisory council, is try not to have a lot of redundancy in what we say and what the advisory council says. The process is very good. And this year we put into place, as a result of developing the new operations plan, which the feds have wanted us to do. We put in place this thing called the TIP process engagement review committee, which we have called the TIPper, which I like because it's one of these kind of recursive. What's the word for it? I use the term all the time, not algorithm. Well, anyways, it's a recursive term, because it has TIP, which is already like abbreviation embedded in the tipper. But anyways, and that has helped us start to get a handle on why our programs or the projects that we're improving or going up in cost. And more importantly, though, that being prepared for the impact of them being on various years of the tip. Because I mean, if a program is getting delayed and it's gone up in cost, we're now having to shift that to another year, which is a problem in itself. But if it goes up in cost by like 30–50%, and some of them have been, then it's more of an issue. And one of the problems that we have is that in order to get into the tip universe, you have to be 25% design. And we had kind of mandated that 25% design because it was a big change from going from just being approved by the state by something called the Project Review Committee, which had less than a 25% design requirement, if I recall correctly. But anyways, we did some analysis and kind of come to the conclusion at the time, about 3 or 4 years ago, that if you require 25% design, yes, you would get some increase in the cost of the project, but not a whole lot. And apparently something has changed because now we're seeing like huge increases in project costs, when they go from 25% design to 75% design, or 75 or full design. And so we're trying to get a handle on that, but also make sure that projects, once they get included in the TIP, which is going to be in that distal year, the 5th year out, that we keep an eye on them and make sure they're doing some work, and keeping a handle on their costs each year, so that there are no surprises. And no surprises in two ways. One is that we aren't surprised by the increase in cost of the project, and the ramifications on the rest of the TIP. And they aren't surprised if we then say to them, well, we're going to have to move you out in a year, and possibly even move them off the TIP. And for those of us, involved in local government, you can appreciate, the impact of moving something out a year. There's so much planning that goes on, even on the municipal level, when it comes to doing a project. That can have impact on municipal budgets. So that's still, but we put that in place. The first year went very well, and we're going to build on it. So I'd like to compliment the process. The other issue that we have. Well, let me just stop here and see if there are any questions, and I'll tell you the other issue, and then I'll stop talking. Period. Any questions?
I think my only question is, what is typically the time frame between the 25% and 75%? Because isn't the time frame of a typical process going to be giving you some indication of the price increase? And you're saying that the price increase, cost increase are radically different. Is that because is the time scale changing, or is it just inflation and supply chain issues?
Well, sometimes what happens when they design, when they get into the heart of design, they realize they need to do other things, and so it becomes a little bit of a scope increase. But I want to be careful about the way that I use that, because let's say you have a project that's going to put in a bike lane, or maybe a multi-use pathway adjacent to the main project, like the complete street projects. And then when you go to design that, you realize, the ground on that side of the road has some issues, and so now to deal with that, it was unexpected. It now costs more. And if what sold,
it's always
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think it's a really good example, and it's a good example of, it's always where these things get complicated. It's always a fine line between should the contractor or builder, or however you want to phrase it, have known about that, or should they have not known about that, right? Like, if it may be completely, nope, there was no way of knowing that. You get in there, you start digging it, you start getting in there, and it's there's no way they could have known it. There's other scenarios where sometimes it's like, well, you built the bridge, 100 yards up the road, and last time you hit all this rock that had to be bulldozed, and it added 50 million, you should have known that the next time it accounted for it. So bad examples, but I think there are, it gets very case by case. And I think Glenn's right. I think he's doing a really good example of where it's, you just don't know. You don't know you're going to get into. But there are other cases
Well,
where it's like, you should have probably included that in your bid because it was
most of the risk
wasn't-
in a typical large construction project is in the subsurface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's true. If you have a skyscraper to build in Boston and you give it, and you go to four big construction companies to get estimates, they'll be within 2% of each other, and they can do it in 2 weeks. You know, they can do a 600-page estimate in 2 weeks. But if no one has fully explored the subsurface, that's not really on the contractor. You know, whether it's a building or a transportation project, it's very hard. But the other thing that Len was talking about in the beginning was the further you go into thinking about the project, the lower the risk, right? So if years ago they were only asking for 2 to 5% design, that has a lot more risk when you start going forward than if you're at 20% design. So it's hard, you know, it's hard, and the MPO typically leaves a lot of unprogrammed money the further out you go in the years, so that they can absorb unexpected changes, whether they're in market pricing for labor and materials or whether they're from other causes. But it's a hard balance because you don't want to.
Well, I want to stop.
You know,
I want to stop you there, Wig, because
okay.
we're not leaving unspent program funds in the distal years. I mean, I
Oh.
made the argument. I made the
Oh, you
argument that we
used
should do
to.
that. We don't anymore. I mean,
Oh,
and
sorry.
I made the argument that we should, and there was good arguments for not doing it. You know,
Okay.
and so I lost that
I'm
one.
out of date. You're
Yeah.
up to date.
Yeah, no, I lost that one. I mean, I understood why people wanted to program things. I mean, and I got a clear statement from folks. I mean, when I lost that argument, and I went along very happily with the current plan. It's like, so we're going to talk to the constituents, right? I mean, or the proponents. We're going to keep in touch with them. I mean, and we're going to let them know how things are going, so that they're not going to be surprised, disappointed, or shocked. I mean, if we get to as we close in, I mean, on that year, that we don't have the funds, for their project because other projects have been gone up in cost, or been shifted out, and they're like, yes, we're going to do that. And this TIPper committee, and the acronym is the word I was looking for. This TIPper is part of that process. You know, so
Okay.
yeah, no
Thank
buffer,
you.
no
Thank
slack.
you.
Yeah, no buffer, no slack. You know. So then the other thing, which is a bit of an issue, is that so we've been getting fewer and fewer projects, over the years, and fewer that have been up to 25% design, and so it costs a fair amount, to get a project designed. It's usually about 10% of the cost of the project. So the more expensive the project, of course, then the more it's going to take to design. And a lot of municipalities, especially the smaller ones, just don't have the funds to do it. They either don't have the funds or they don't have the staff to help them design the project. So we did create this technical design committee. That's not the right name for it, but essentially it's to help communities design projects in order to increase the pipeline. Well, it turns out, that we didn't spend all the money that we had in that program because the concern was that we'd end up with too many projects in the pipeline, and MassDOT can't support a whole lot of projects now because they're just understaffed. They don't have the staff to support those projects. So now you say, well, MassDOT is a federal program. Yes, it's a federal program, but we are working with the state. And so the state has oversight over these projects. And one of those is to have a project manager running the program, the project. And they just don't have the capacity for it. So it's like we didn't want to lead the communities down the road expecting this project to get onto the tip by designing it. We only say, oh, can't do it, and so we held back. And so now we're in the situation where we can't increase our pipeline because we don't have the bandwidth to support them. So it is what it is. I want to say I'm rather confident that MassDOT is trying to increase the capacity, but I haven't been told that point blank. So I haven't been told, yeah, we're trying to hire more project managers. I'm just assuming that's the case. So I guess I make that by way of explanation. I'm not quite sure how to sum that up in a letter in a meaningful way, because we're all aware of it. And it's not like we have like insights as to what can be done to solve it. It's really a people problem, and it's not clear to me if it's a matter of expanding or if it's a matter of filling in empty spaces. Did we have those project managers and they're no longer with us, and we have positions to fill, or do we really need to increase the number of positions? Because the latter is a little harder to do, because you then have to build in the capacity, in the organization. Whereas if you have the capacity and it's just vacant, you just fill it in with a body, and this requires much effort, resources to create or to implement.
Hey, Len, while you're on topic, can you say a few words about federal oversight of this whole process at this point?
Well, the only federal oversight, right, is Federal Highway. Well, there's another federal entity that is part of the MPO. I can't remember what it is at this point. There's Federal Highway, which is Ken Miller, and I forget the other one. I don't think it's the FTA. I'm sorry. I guess I could go to.
Yeah, it probably is FTA, but I think you're right. The roadway gets a lot more attention. As you were speaking, I thought of Soup Ship, which is how the Navy oversees marine, ocean vessel contracts with Bath Iron Works or with Ingalls down in Mississippi. They have a completely independent audit group that sits in those cities and keeps track of those defense projects.
And so its relevance to us is what?
Well, you're spending infrastructure money of the same scale of military new project spending, and it seems like there's completely different processes for keeping track of that and oversight.
Okay, well, I guess I'm not quite sure what the feds do in terms of oversight, what we're doing. So yeah, the other entity is the FTA. So I don't know how they do their oversight. All I know is that every 4 years, they come in and do the audit's not correct word. Maybe it is an audit, but they certainly look at us, and do a report, on our positives and negatives.
I think they're likely underscaled. Not that you want to build bureaucracies without purpose, but I think federal transit is underscaled.
Okay, I have no insight on that one or another.
It looks like he does.
I'm just curious, is any of this from the broader picture, is any of this cyclical on a regular cadence?
Yes.
Is there this like period? But is it a regular pattern, like where we could actually see it coming, so that we're not suddenly constrained by the lack of project managers and the lack of staff? Or is it just is the nature of the beast reactive? Is it inherently reactive?
I see what you're getting at. Well, so this technical design program, is new, and so we put that in place, in order to help the municipalities, design projects, because we've been understanding for a long time, a lot of the smaller communities just didn't have the resources, to design projects. So we've been wanting, to get more. What we want to. You want to deal with that, Stefan? I'm stopping because the recording stopped.
I don't know.
Guys need to go take.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for pausing there.
Yeah, no
I don't
problem.
know what that was.
Yeah, so we've been wanting to help communities, that can't design projects, and so everyone was enthusiastic about creating this program, and
Okay.
I think we're all a little surprised, because we had like a number of potential projects that wanted support, and they're good ones. And then MassDOT told us, why don't you spend just 6 million of the 10 million that you would spend or whatever the number we had to spend. Why don't you just spend 60% of it, because we don't think we have the capacity to support your spending all the monies that are available for designing projects. So, so there we are. Yeah. So like I said, I'm not sure how to put that in a letter. That is more than just stating a problem that everyone knows. So maybe I can find out what potential solutions there are and maybe suggest one or more of those. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that it feels like that problem would be equally distributed across all entities, all agencies, all organizations. But is that true? I mean, or are there deficits that are more pronounced in one area from time to time compared to, I mean, or in other words, does the whole of planners and the capacity sort of go together, or is I guess it's not really a relevant question, so we can disregard that.
Yeah, well, I think it would be surprising, to find homogeneity across the system, right?
Yeah, right.
Even across the state, and so you're going to expect pockets, where the problem is more severe, and other pockets where it's not. When it comes
Right.
to planners in general, and then specific kinds of planners.
Right. And even if there was a surplus as such, I mean, in one area, I mean, it's a specialty thing. You're not going to be able to just transfer people from one organization to another. I mean, no, it's going to be a very specialized
Yeah.
thing. Okay.
So, all right, so with respect to the MassDOT 2050 plan, I still have to delve into that. I remember early on when it was under development, I did a survey, and I remember just being kind of underwhelmed by it. It's like, this is not as bold as I thought it was going to be. So beyond mobility. So I stopped really tracking it, and so now we have the draft plan out there. I think it gives us quite a while to comment on it, and so I'm gonna try and give it a read, over the next couple of weeks, but I'll make the priority and tip. Yeah. All right, Hunter, see you around. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. It's is I'm all of a sudden grappling for words here. The Beyond Mobility, that's just the name of this current, is it just the name of this current plan from the current administration with this current target date? Okay.
Hey,
Okay.
I need to go back and read why this is being done. I don't know if this is like the state's equivalent of the MPO's long range transportation plan. And so
They usually, MAPC does the same thing. They generally give a specific new name to some of these documents to,
right.
I think maybe make them more consumer friendly. They give them a new title. I do think one thing that is going to have to be watched is climate over the next 5 years. There is a huge change in global temperature over the last 2 years, and that I think is showing itself in ocean temperature and coastal storm intensity.
Right.
So
Yep.
That's funny. That's just as you're saying that, this jumped out at me. State Hazard Mitigation and Climate Adoption Plan, SHMCAP. Wait, is that a term that you know?
no,
SHMCAP, State Hazard Mitigation, Climate
no,
Adoption,
but I'm not
Adaptation.
current. I'm
Okay.
not current in this stuff. The way Len is.
Is that
I
adoption
am.
or adaptation?
Adaptation. I
Okay,
misspoke. Thank you.
all right, bro.
Uh,
Yep. Thank
I
you.
am probably more current though in the Maine coast, and it is just slammed the last 2 years. In a 4 or 5 storms that destroyed buildings on half the coast each time, destroyed
Yep.
docks. I mean, it's very unusual. It's not like the one-off hurricanes that you would get every 10 years and they're just bigger than everything else. This is pretty systematic.
Yeah, and repetitive. Yeah, I mean, no one wants to talk about abandoning, areas. But that's going to happen. No one wants to talk about it, and so we're all like going, "Well, we just need to, protect ourselves, and make it more resilient." But there's just going to be no resilience in the face of what we're going to have to deal with, and nature's just going to,
I think this is the first time in my life where looking 25 to 30 years ahead is not the same as looking back. It's really clear. It's not the same.
Yeah. Well, I think you mean that in order of degree. Yes, Craig.
Tying it back to transportation,
Yes.
and do we, in this plan or other plans for the next 10 years, are there any projects we can point to that are specifically climate related? And by that I mean not something like electrification to cut greenhouse gases, but something where we're going to rebuild this section of Newburyport line because it's at sea level, and we want to raise this 2 mile section in the marsh by 3 feet. Do we know if there's anything like, or we have?
Yep.
We're going to make these changes. We're going to outfit the aquarium station with a special pumping system, so we don't have to put these sandbags around the doors during supermoons. Like I'm trying to think if there's any, is there, or are those kind of projects, we're not there yet, that people are concerned about. We have enough other problems in the system that people aren't thinking about resiliency projects like that.
I'm aware of two personally. One was the Cabot Red Line Yard seawall. Like I guess you could call it a first round because by chance, finished conducting the Cabot Yard vulnerability assessment is on the resiliency part here. I know that there was a seawall job done a couple of years ago at Cabot. But the other one I know is at the Everett garage, and I believe also on the other side of the river, on the Charlestown side, there was also a seawall done that well, I believe actually that's also being referred to here. Additional bus facility vulnerability. I believe that is specifically talking about Everett and Charlestown. I thought they might have been done, but I'm guessing not. And yes, I think since you mentioned Newburyport, Rockport, yeah, the historic flood location, I think one of the most at risk is Newburyport, Rockport between Revere and Lynn.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everything that's kind of phrased in here, though, is about assessments, though, right? Like we're not at that stage yet where we've done the assessment and we've said, yes, this is the next seawall we have to build, or this is the next
Good point.
track area we have to raise, or this is the next bridge we have to replace.
Good point. Wow. Makes me want to dive back into records of
They're
old
all- they're all good
projects, but
examples, right? Like
Yeah.
I always forget about Cabot Yard, but
The
yeah, Cabot
biggest
Yard's
bus,
like, you know,
the biggest bus,
2 or 3 feet above sea level. Yikes. I think it was made land, as the author Nancy C. Scholes coined. I think the whole area of Cabot and Wedette Circle, I believe it's all filled.
yeah, that makes sense. What's the end of the 4 point channel turns into a creek or river there at some
Yeah,
name to it.
yeah.
well, Fort Point's in South Boston, right? I mean,
Yep. It's the 4 point channel is basically what ends right at the Cabot Yards.
Yeah, come
Oh,
on,
I
you want
thought
to show
you
a
were-
map, Stefan? I know you do.
I thought you were talking about Sullivan. Sorry, Sullivan
That's
Square.
okay. Shall I? I got it at my fingertips.
It would be worth a meeting just on climate and sea level
Oh, absolutely.
sometime.
I mean, this is it. I mean, Fort Point Channel right here. Bass River.
The Bass River, that's the name.
Yeah.
Which
There we go.
is the world's shortest river.
Just about, yeah.
Like it's
Yeah, you had a point there. But yeah,
Can you
4
believe they
point
named
channel.
that? That's not part of the channel. That is a river.
Yep. But yeah, I don't remember if I was pointing this out in this subcommittee, but yeah, this wall right here, I mean, it's got a walking path on it. So maybe I'm mistaken, and this work wasn't so much about resiliency, and maybe it was more about being able to provide the connection around for the waterfront walkway. Maybe I'm doubting what I thought I knew about this, but yeah, this is the whole area of concern, because it's it's just a few feet. Not to mention the main tie-in to the old colony lines is right here, and of course, hey, how many feet would you sea level have to rise until the entire Mass Pike Extension tunnel is underwater? Not much.
So I could talk about the power and signals.
Yep.
Just quickly tell you a little funny story that came up at the
Yeah, please.
at the MPO
we do
meeting.
that.
Yeah, I want to get it on the record and see if you all recall this as well as I do. Eric Barassa, of MEPC, when they did the presentation on CIP and they were kind of emphasizing, the expenditures on power and signals. He says, well, I'm really happy, that you all are really focusing on signals and power because it's not sexy, but it's really important. And no one's been like really like helping support or support you, in spending that kind of money. And I was thinking, we've been doing that. We've been doing that for a long time. I remember when Scott Hamway, like when they were doing Focus 40, he came to one of our
Yep.
meetings. This was like in 2017, 2018. And we were all about the power and signals. And he was like, yeah, I'm really happy that you all supporting this. It's not sexy. And I was like, because my big thing was after 2015, when we were just doing the 1 year CIPs because of the extreme circumstances. And they did like a review of the needs of the system. What really stuck out at me was that the power and signals and IT were rated really low in terms of
Right.
where
Right.
how, but the amount of money you spend on them was pretty low too. And it's like, why don't we just like put a lot of money in these to really get them up to snuff? And for me, it's like power was a no-brainer. It's like, if the system doesn't have reliable power, it's not going to work. I was kept wondering to myself, like, what am I missing here? It's like when the obvious thing is not being done, it's like I'm missing something here. I mean, you say it a few times, and you don't want to be like kind of like perceived as the wacky person that's talking about power and signals all the time. But it's like, what am I missing here? And IT was the other thing too. It's like, yeah, you get your IT up to snuff. I mean, you can really increase efficiency because people aren't struggling with like outmoded or outdated databases. I mean, it's like, you can come up with good tracking systems and you can, help people become more efficient. It doesn't require a whole lot of money, on that, but anyways,
Yeah.
so I didn't say anything to Eric being in the meeting, because it was like, well, I didn't want to yeah, it was not the right time to do it. I could have gotten in there, but I was like, I'll save that for later, and maybe write him a letter saying, well, we were on board with this a long time ago, but once again, I'm not quite sure what I get out of doing that. But do you all remember that? Do you remember Scott Hamway coming to our
Yeah,
meeting?
absolutely.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, okay.
That was a big effort.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's still around,
Oh,
so I
yeah.
want it'll be worth talking to again too, because I think, I mean, Scott Ham was very forward thinking, and I'm sure he's thought about climate. So maybe, we can do the capital investment thing and then find out where they are in that cycle, because it's about time we start doing the next PMT. And I forget what PMT stands for, but it's supposed to be done.
Program for
every-
mass transit.
Yeah, I think thank you, Steph. And it's supposed to be done every 5 years. And we have a tendency now to do it like every 7 to 10 years.
Really?
Scott lived in East Boston, right?
Does he?
I think he did. I mean, I'm
Oh,
not.
good.
He may still be there. I don't know. I used to see him sometimes with his son.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, our future rock member. He's old enough now that he could probably be a part of rock.
Yeah.
But- Yeah,
Uh.
we got spaces reserved for Craig's kids.
Oh, absolutely. But we have to wait till they're 21 to play the Mattapan trolley drinking game.
Goodness. The kids don't drink these days, I hope.
Yeah, it's much reduced. Yeah. But funny that just to tie back to what you were just saying about the the system power and signals and IT.
Yeah.
I actually think that is echoed in this part of the 2050 plan. What the heck is it called? This thing, the
Beyond mobility.
beyond mobility.
We're
Yeah.
I
I was actually really encouraged to see this here for reliability.
right.
And what I think is interesting is that we have to remember that this is MassDOT. This is beyond just MBTA public transit. So when you think about this in terms of also roadway, and the RTAs, etc., reliability, and hey, what are they calling out as a part of reliability? Oh, the implications on VMT pricing. Hey. And I think also the reliability factor is sort of an echo from that past acknowledgement of the underfunding of power and signals, because power and signals don't now, I'm going to put my foot in my mouth here. I was about to say power and signals don't directly affect safety, but well, power does. If you've got power system problems, you could have fires when that impacts safety. But okay, with the exception of power and signal systems, like causing fires and accidents, I mean, it's more of a reliability thing. Oh, the train got stuck behind a signal that's stuck, or a switch that's stuck, or I don't know, maybe I'm talking myself out of my own argument here.
If you don't have water pumps, you can get in trouble pretty quickly.
Right. Well, anyway, that was a very long-winded way of saying, I think what Len was just saying about, Scott Hamway and the power and signals, I think that's coming forward into this 2050 plan about involving reliability, I think, more than the other big points.
So let me ask this: if anyone else is interested in commenting on this, would someone else want to write the draft letter for 2 weeks, on this?
I'd like to assist if I can be useful, but I don't feel like I could properly do it justice by myself.
Well, you write the draft, because I gotta say, I'm kind of gonna be starting from scratch on this. So it's not like with the tip, where I feel, okay, I know a lot more than people do about the tip. So it'd probably be more efficient for me to write the draft on the tip. But in this one, you all are as up to speed on it as I am.
All right, fair enough. That's a good point. All right, I'm game.
Okay, great, thanks. And I'll read it too, so then we can work on the draft together.
Well,
in 2 weeks.
I guess I should give you the disclaimer that I have only read the this 21-page deck
Right.
And I mean, it's very good. I mean, I thought that these highlights were actually really good at the end. I mean, I was surprised these were just at the appendix, but maybe they wanted to keep it brief. But I mean, here's our reliability and clean transportation.
Yep.
Particularly, hey, MassDOT does not believe in roadway expansion to reduce congestion. Ooh, hey, what are we gonna do? Again, implications of roadway pricing on mode shift, VMT reduction. And then under clean, what was the thing that jumped out at me? Yeah, geospatial, and I mean, you tell me if this is just giving the issue lip service. Geospatial analysis, identify locations that are high concentrations of household with no vehicle access, and prioritize investments to coordinate with how, I mean, okay.
No, they can easily do that.
But is that actually a step in the right direction? I guess
Yeah,
maybe I'm being overly
that's
critical.
the kind of thing where MAPC comes in. MAPC always has that second seat on the
Okay.
Boston MPO, and I mean, I feel bad that Tim Reardon has moved on because he had most of the region's data in his head. He's now working for the state exclusively in housing. He probably
Okay.
ran out of MAPC years that would, add to retirement and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
if you ever need somebody who knows all of the regional data of every kind,
Hmm.
Tim Reardon is a wealth of knowledge.
But he's still in the system as a municipal
Yeah,
employee, state
he's in
employee.
the system. He just was made head of housing by the governor, um, one of the housing departments. He had been
Okay.
in another intermediate department after leaving MAPC. Um, I always thought he might end up heading MAPC, but he's a little bit shy, but
Hmm.
got, he's an encyclopedia. He's very well mannered. Um, you'd probably find a lot. He had a collection of databases that were online. Sometimes they're hard to find, but he's really stunningly good.
Is he?
And but I think of him because this is an equity issue, right? That's what you just read.
Yeah. Is he in a cabinet level position currently?
Yes,
Oh,
I think so. I mean, I think I skim stuff too quickly to absorb it accurately sometimes, but I think he is now. I've been surprised how quickly he moved. But all you got to do is Google Tim Reardon and you'll find him.
I just got him. Okay. Yeah. LinkedIn says Chief of Data and Research in the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. Wow.
Yeah, so maybe I misspoke on cabinet level, but I don't think I'd be surprised if there's 10 people out of 6 million in Massachusetts who know as much about our data.
Wow. Sounds like he's in the right position for that skill set. Wow. Okay. Huh. I've lost focus for where we
Well,
just were
we were
before.
we that last slide to me
Yeah.
looks like an equity slide, right? Part of it. Making sure we're paying attention to people who need help. But it's awfully small on my screen, so
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Let me help.
no, don't worry about that,
Oh, it's
Stefan.
okay. We've got the screen real estate here.
Yeah,
Here you
don't
go.
worry about it.
Okay. Well, the links are in the Zoom chat, and I always make sure that they get into the YouTube
Yeah.
recording as well. Um,
This is also, it's also, it's a great
resiliency
issue
also.
from many angles, right? Because if you have clean transportation and you're serving the people who are most inclined to use it,
Right.
it all kind of fits together, and other people who are progressive are going to use it too. And so,
Yep. Oh, I just because that's happened to be on the screen, just call this out. 81 MBTA rapid transit stops, 15 commuter rail stops, 1,200 bus stops would be inundated by a 10-foot sea level rise. Yikes.
yeah, and note that's going to happen a lot earlier with storms than it does,
Yep.
permanently.
Yep. But
But
if
they,
I'm not mistaken, a 10-foot sea level rise, if it was permanent, that's pretty much goodbye to like 20% of Boston, right? Like
yeah,
anything that 10 foot.
some of the storm surges in Maine were 15 to 20 feet.
Jeez.
But and you remember Bloomberg started working on the subway entrances quite a while ago in New York City.
Right.
With this very stuff in mind.
Yep.
So, okay,
Okay.
so I think we're gonna try and do the three letters, right?
Yep.
Or I'll see if we can get the comment people or the capital investment people in to talk with us, in which case we don't have to do a letter, but we might just want to do one for the record. So I'll deal with
Yeah.
CIP, me and the tip, me and you, Stefan, are gonna deal with beyond mobility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
kinda-
if you think that we could collaborate on the other two, we could try.
Sure. If I can get a draft out to you all before the meeting,
Yep.
then we can collaborate that way. It'll I know better, than to promise anything before that day. Who knows? Maybe I'll surprise myself,
Yeah.
get it all done, and I'll just send it beforehand.
I think I'm gonna ask the dumbest question I've asked all week. Well, it's only Tuesday. The draft, does the draft state it explicitly indicate that it is open for public comment?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't know if the text of the draft says that. I mean, but being open for public comment, is something that is mandated. I mean, so it's not a nicety. I mean, it has to happen. And at least with the MPO, I mean, the tip.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's the case with the MBTA CIP. But it's the main reason that they're called drafts. Although the extent to which the comments change anything in the drafts, I mean, is limited. Now in the case of the tip, we do a lot of amendments to the tip, and so comments can be taken into account and result in changes to projects theoretically. Whereas with the CIP, I don't think there's any such thing. But what the MBTA CIP would probably do is take the comments into account when developing the next CIP. But in all these documents, I think the comments are included as an appendix, or at least a link to them is included, in the final version of the documents. So
Yeah,
That sounds familiar.
the three types of mandatory federal reports by the MPOs are conformity documents. There is no wiggle room in the process. There's wiggle room in the regional ways that these things are handled, but the region cannot opt out of comment periods and still be in conformity and get federal funds.
Okay. Is LRTP also mandated?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all three, but the tip and the tip is the meat of what's going to happen on the ground. the LRTP is equally mandated. On the study projects, that's a little looser, don't you think, Len?
Well, I mean, we have some,
UPWP.
yeah, the UPWP, we can choose the discretionary projects, I mean, but the UPWP is more than just studies, I mean, it really lays out, I mean, the work plan, I mean, for the staff of the MPO, I mean, so,
Yeah.
and a lot of the discretion that we used to have in picking projects it's been taken out because they now have like dedicated programs, I mean, like the multimodal, intersection
Yeah.
program, I mean, now, instead of like picking, the areas that we're going to study, I mean, staff pretty much does that,
Yeah.
and so it's discretionary with respect to what staff picks, but with respect to what the committee chooses, we're down to 150K on studies.
Wow.
Yeah.
But they're called, I'm sorry, Len, go ahead.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
They're called conformity documents. If you don't conform, you don't get the money.
All right. Well, I'm kind of done. I kind of need a public comment I was going to make, or the report on external meetings when I told you the story about Eric Barassa.
Yeah.
Earlier today, Eric Barassa?
Excuse me?
Earlier this evening?
Yeah, when
Mentioned
about the
Eric
power
Barassa?
and the signal, about the power and signals. I mean,
Oh,
comment,
Barassa. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I had Scott Hemway in my head.
Well, yeah, he was mentioning the same story too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As someone that could
for that reminder.
as someone that could back me up if you all couldn't, and I was going to go to Scott. Do you remember me saying that, Scott?
Yes.
So,
Okay.
are we done?
Well, I'll just pull up one last thing because it's
Len
relatively
says, "Are we
new.
done?" I'm nodding yes, and Stefan goes, "Oh
I'm
no,
just gonna-
no!
I'm just gonna bring up one
I don't
last
understand how it would be
thing.
done, not done in 2 hours."
Just one last thing. This was from the April. Let me scroll back up to the beginning. April 11
No.
board meeting. Sorry,
Yeah.
the
Audit. Yeah.
subcommittee. Yeah, the subcommittee
Yeah.
board, and I thought this was nice to see. That is kind of putting it mildly. I mean, I guess, but I mean, 312. Yay!
Yeah.
A lot.
They've been putting these out regularly, like once a month or so.
Yeah,
Maybe once a quarter, or maybe once a
I-
quarter, maybe once every 3 months. Yeah.
I guess it's been a couple of rounds since I actually really noticed that, hey, we're getting up there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Anything else?
I guess not. Yeah. I
Nope.
don't see. Let me just check. Nobody else has joined the Zoom. Seems to be one other person besides me monitoring the YouTube stream. Seems to be one other person watching. So let me just say for the record, if the person who's watching on YouTube wants to give any public comment, we're a little early on the agenda. We're about maybe 9 minutes early. But at any point, feel free to submit public comments to our organization, roc@mbtaroc.org. That's simply roc@mbtaroc.org. Or for the record, mbtaroc.org and contact. And that's a perfectly wonderful way to give us public comment if the opportunity didn't arise during one of our public meetings, like this one. So I think that's probably covering the what do you think, gents? Is that good for the letter of the law as far as
Yep. It sure is.
wrapping up a little bit early
Yep.
without leaving?
Yep.
If you want to
Anyone
stay,
in
you know,
alert?
and wait for someone, that's fine. It's just that if you're done with me, and I'm free to go, you know.
I
go.
think we can wrap it up. I will make
Alright.
a motion to adjourn for the evening. Can I have someone second?
Second.
I will second it.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Have a
Great
good
to
week.
see you.
Thank you guys. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Just have another
Good
meeting
night.
at 8 o'clock. So want to get a little food,
Yeah, excellent.
prepare
All
for
right.
it. Okay. All right. Take care.